she also wants this brand new thing that nobody has done before. And she wants to carve out her own path that there is no blueprint for. And those things being at odds with each other is kind of what's at the center of this season for Midge.
So the first question's for Alex. After everything went so wrong for Midge and Susie at the end of season 3, how anxious were you to get back together after the long delay to see how everybody put their lives back together?
Well, it's a very true point, is that the fans are like, oh my God, hurry, we can't wait. And we're in the same boat. Like, we have no future knowledge of what's going to be or what's happening with our characters. And it leaves us hanging to a certain extent, even more so than the audience. So we were very eager, both as actors and as characters, to kind of get back to it. And this whole season we do kind of pick up after that horrible fall, and we have to pick up the pieces and see if they can fit back together again. And I think Susie wants to put everything back together like it was, and Midge has her sights set much higher. She wants to put it back in a different way and change the picture that the puzzle will ultimately become.
Build back better, as they say.
Yeah. And Rachel, the first episode really does sort of feel like a reset too for the series again. And part of that also involves going back to the Weissmans' original apartment. So what was it like to go back to that set, but in a different, just a little different way?
It felt amazing just to be in that apartment again. We said goodbye to the Weissman apartment at the end of last season. And so to start this season after having been away for so long in a set that felt so familiar from the very beginning of the show was a great way to kick us back off. Change is hard, and Midge wants two really different and competing things, which is she wants to go back to a time when things were easier and simpler and more comfortable. She wants her old apartment. She wants sometimes, not necessarily this season, but over the seasons, like a simpler relationship with Joel. She wants to be happy and comfortable and feel like herself. And at the same time, she also wants this brand new thing that nobody has done before. And she wants to carve out her own path that there is no blueprint for. And those things being at odds with each other is kind of what's at the center of this season for Midge.
It's an interesting conflict inside the same character.
Yeah.
But one of the other big cast additions this year was Milo Ventimiglia came in, and we still don't really know what he's doing in the show.
He's doing Susie in the show. It's a torrid love affair.
There's lots of acrobatics. It's pretty intense and boundary pushing for television as we know it.
Yeah.
Well, it's also funny that Midge's costumes are so outrageous throughout, the show has gone on. And it's funny watching, the difference between Midge and Susie's costumes. And like, how are you and Amy Sherman-Palladino, like, how do you guys decide the costumes for each scene, and what goes into the planning of that?
Most of that it happens all inside Donna Zakowska's brain, our incredible costume designer. And honestly, I just show up. It's one of the best parts about being on this show is we have really nothing else to do but show up. The writing is so amazing. The costumes are so amazing. The set is so amazing. It's one of my favorite parts of every episode is walking into the costume shop, seeing 100 new pairs of shoes and sketches on the wall of everything that Donna's envisioning. But Donna's a brilliant storyteller. She has a really clear sense of how the costumes can enhance the storytelling in any particular scene. And sometimes I feel like I leave a costume fitting having a better understanding of the story we're telling from conversations with Donna. But she also keeps pushing herself. There's more colors and patterns and insane hats and beautiful shapes this season. We're entering the 60s, so there's definitely more fun to be had in that department.
And Alex, do you have any comments on your costumes?
I mean, I usually have weird little things that I ask for. I'll say, what about a pipe? I want to smoke a pipe, or I'd like a vest, and could I have a pocket watch? I mean, I have very weird little asks, and they're usually very giving in letting me have those things. But certainly I don't have the same level of, my fittings are much shorter. I go in, I see if the pants still fit. If they do, they make a few other pairs in different fabric, and the shirts. Yeah, it's much simpler. And I'm sure, before Donna gets going, I'm sure, Amy and her sit and discuss the tone and go through the outlines of the episodes. And Amy's a huge part of all of that direction. And some of it is scripted sometimes in the direction. And so everything starts in Amy's brain, and then it permeates and percolates through everyone else's.
Are you all still having like input in the characters, or does Amy just have such a definitive vision that you're just, bringing her words to life?
Yeah.
There's a few times where I text her something crazy, and I say, I want to do this, just some weird action, or I have some image or physical bit, and 8 times out of 10, she'll try to make it happen. But in terms of storyline or development, that's all Amy.
Yeah. She usually texts me a number of weird texts about once a season, because I'm convinced that they sit around thinking of new ways to try to murder me. But, once a season, I'll get a text before we start going, can you ice skate? Do you speak French? Can you bowl? Do you play ping pong? Can you ride a bike? And I'm just like, oh God, what are we going to be up to?
Well,
Wow.
And in the first episode of this season, there's the crazy Wonder Wheel conversation.
Yeah.
How difficult was it to pull that off? It's like conducting an orchestra to figure out how to get that done.
It's pretty amazing. And it's a scene I'm so glad you asked, because I want to talk to everybody about this incredible feat that this entire team pulled off. But, obviously Amy envisioned this scene, and then a million other people got panicked for a minute and then got to work figuring out how to make it happen. And we actually shot the exterior at Coney Island. And then we spent 2 days in essentially a warehouse on one of our sets with one car, and we all rotated in and out of the car one at a time. And so we basically spent 2 days screaming at whoever was in the car, and shot for, a couple hours each. And they made the whole thing come together in post. We have an incredible VFX supervisor, Leslie, who had a little model and dreamed the whole thing up. But that scene was extraordinary, and it never got less funny. And then the loopier we got, the funnier it got somehow. And so I can't wait for people to see that scene.
It must have been just a feat of acting to visualize everyone yelling across from.
Oh, we all lost our voices, and eventually they said something which relieved us of that pressure. Because I was like, I don't know where anyone is in relationship to me, and they were just like, nobody knows. The more you look around, the crazier you'll look, and that's what we want.
Alex, before I go, I did have one non-Maisel question for you. Since with family, just about Family Guy. Just since the show is now in its 20th season, and we were wondering if you ever see yourself stepping away from that show. It's just gone on for so long.
It's insane, right? I was 15 when we started. Can you believe it? No, I will stay on that ship until it is completely underwater. I love those people. I love that character. And, as long as the writers are able to come up with stories that in some way are fresh and interesting. Every time I read a script, I laugh out loud. So that's my measure. My barometer is if I'm still laughing when I receive a script, then it's still a pleasure to do.
Well, that sounds great. And Mrs. Maisel is just as funny. Thank you two so much for speaking with us, and wish you the best of luck on season 4.